What's up, friends? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Be Less Unfit Performance podcast, YouTube show. You're going to notice over the course of these videos that, I've changed a lot. I filmed these over the course of 2 years. So as my life changed, you see my body change. 1. 2, I changed the way I was going to use these videos. They were going to only be an add-on to the program. Instead, I wanted everybody to be able to have this great information, and so now they're live. If you have any questions or want to know more about the Be Less Unfit program, please head over to sampogue.com or belessunfit.com to learn more and check it out. In the meantime, please enjoy this amazing show and learn more about our guests by going down to the comment section bio area and click what they have going on. I'm so blessed that they said yes to helping me out, and I want you to go learn from them as well. So enjoy the show, have a great day, and please remember to subscribe. What's up, everybody? Welcome to BLF Performance Webinar. I'm sitting down here with my friend, Dr. Ben House, a great friend of mine. We met in Austin, Texas during my time at Onnit and have been blessed to stay in touch and been able to work with him a bit. And he's someone that I tremendously respect in this industry because of his ability to come from a medical and a professional lens of perspective, but he can also come granular and want to head out and look at lifting. And so he has the ability to look at both science and application, the actual person doing the thing and connecting with them, but then being able to talk in the medical lens and perspective and make sure that all the bases are covered. And I really wanted him to come on here and to give a perspective around the general landscape of health, because in the last 10 years alone, the health industry has changed exponentially, not only in the way our bodies are appearing, but in the way we're feeling and some of the outcomes that we're starting to appear and we're starting to see in our common ailments and injuries, in addition to the lifestyles that we live. And for a lot of you who are looking at getting back into shape or maybe getting into shape for the first time, you probably have a lot of questions around where do I start? What's really important for me? What are the things I really need to pay attention to? What is science saying is really important? And I want to be able to wrap that all up into a thing for you to be able to understand and go into this journey confidently so you are empowered with the information for you to be successful, because the goal of this program is to build the tools to help you be successful. Because what I've realized is people are not able to build a system around something that they aren't familiar with in general. So here, the education here is built around helping you figure out what fitness and lifestyle choices can I make that work with my today life that I can be successful with going forward, that become a catalyst for me to start improving the wellness that I live day in, day out going forward. So without further ado, Dr. Ben House, thank you so much for joining me all the way from Costa Rica in the beautiful internet world to be able to connect. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about your background. I know you have a really interesting educational background, how you got into functional medicine. And for people who don't know, what is functional medicine first and foremost?
So yeah, I have a PhD in nutritional sciences. I have a lot of letters after my name. I don't know that that's important. I have research ADD, so I like looking at a lot of different things. I try not to be what we would call cognitively entrenched. So I try not to silo myself out. And I've become not very enamored with the term functional medicine. I think it's just health. Like, what is optimal health? I don't think like optimal health doesn't exist. Like, as humans evolutionarily, like evolution doesn't care about you past a certain point, right? The point of human life is to turn calories into babies. And so once we appreciate that fact, a lot of things make a lot more sense. And so as an animal, you're kind of built around three things, which is to conserve energy, to get energy, and to procreate. And those are what you want to do. And when you have this in your mind, it makes a lot of sense. So if you give people, back in the day, we didn't have access to the same food that we had now. Like, we had to move. We had to move to get food. Hunter-gatherers generally moved about 3 to 6 hours a day, then maybe a little bit longer on persistent hunts. And they didn't have access to, chips and blueberry pies. Like, this stuff wasn't available. But if it was available, they would have eaten it. Like, they would do anything to get honey. And honey only had what we would call an energy density of about 3.4 calories per gram. An RX bar has 4.3 calories per gram. So just an RX bar is more dense than anything our hunter-gatherer would ever have found. And it combines protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Like these are foods that we would inherently value, and we know where they are. So our brains value sugar and fat and crunchy, sweet. It will search those out, and that's evolutionarily that's advantageous. So if you are at a place where you are overweight, or you're obese, or whatever, if you're over fat, that is evolutionarily that is the correct choice. It's a problem of progress. We have, as a species, we have solved this riddle of millennia of getting enough food. And so now we've solved this problem so well that we've created a ton of other problems, right? We're not moving, so we've created this box where you can move, right? And now you have to choose to go to this box to move. Like anybody who jogged for fun back in the day, dead, stupid, dumb, right? Did not happening, right? So you're having to use your prefrontal cortex or your higher brain regions to dampen. The average human probably has, they encounter food about, like, they make 230 food decisions about per day. That the majority of those you have to say no, which is very, very difficult, right? And so it's very hard. You have to set up systems. You have to, my biggest thing is I want people to design their environments for success, right? Because you can't trust yourself. Like none of us can trust ourselves. We just have to set up systems that allow us to be successful. Because left to our own devices, we 100%, we should sit on the couch, watch Netflix, and open our door and let Uber Eats just bring us food. Like that is the right decision, and that is what we were trying to not necessarily fight against, but appreciate. And then once we appreciate that fact, we can realize that yes, this is gonna be hard, but it is doable. It's not impossible. It's doable. It's just gonna be like, we're gonna have some placeholders that we're gonna have to monitor, right? And everybody's gonna be different, but you gotta move. You gotta put on muscle. You probably have, if you are overweight, you probably have to eat higher quality food. I don't subscribe to any one dietary religion, but you do have to probably increase your food quality. We would call this, you're lowering your energy density of your diet. And so you're essentially getting more calories for more volume of food. So you're eating more. So one of my big things is I don't want like eat less and move more. Not helpful advice. I want you to eat more and move more. I want high energy flux through the system, because if you get high energy flux through the system, that's how human beings were designed. We are designed to pull calories through that system. We are not designed to live on 1,200 calorie diets, which I don't know how that became the number, but somehow 1,200 calories became the number that you could go lower than 1,200 calories, but like it's going to be detrimental over a certain period of time. Like you can't live at 1,200 calories. Like, so if you're living on a diet, it's terrible. Like eventually you got to get off your diet. Like you don't want to live. It's very, very hard to live in a world of restriction. So to restrict yourself all the time in a world of abundance. Like, so the one thing that we do have, like, so if I am in a world of abundance, what is the one thing I can combat that isn't restriction? Because weight loss is going to be restriction. So what can I do that can add to that? Well, I can gain muscle, because muscle is protective against all-cause mortality. It's protective against falling down. It grips strength, leg, like VO2 max, cardiorespiratory fitness. All these things are protective as we age. And so if you can accrue, it's a place to put sugar, right? So it's going to make you more metabolically flexible, which we might talk about with Mike T. Nelson, right? It's going to enhance your ability to deal with large boluses of glucose. Now, does that mean you immediately get Pop-Tarts after your training session? No. Like sipping Gatorade on the treadmill, not helpful. And so body composition is really about, you're gonna have to lower your caloric intake. There's no way around it. Like running, you generally can't lose a lot of weight by exercising, but that doesn't mean that exercising is not important, because exercising, you got to move, because that's gonna help your appetite. That's gonna help, not because if you only get 5,000, 6,000 steps a day, your appetite's probably going to be dysregulated. You're going to want ice cream. And so that's what we found in the literature, is because humans are probably built to move a little bit more than that throughout the day.
Wait, can we go back to that real quick? You're saying that people who are not moving enough, right there, that's kind of a catalyst. Our bodies are intrinsically saying like, hey, go fuel with more, so we want to do more. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the research has found, like, if you move less, so appetite, moving less is dysregulatory towards your appetite, so you will eat more food. This is, observationally, people like to make this as a very simple story, right? So like, oh, New Yorkers, they're not overweight. It's because they walk. Okay, maybe, but that's an observation, right? Oh, and then they get to the next observation. Well, you know, Paleolithic people like the Hadza, they walk 15 miles a day. Okay, so now we're on the next observation, right? So it's this observational trend. And then so eventually you just like the average American gets anywhere from 5,000 to 6,000 steps a day, right? I think it's like somewhere in the 5,500 if you look at the observational data. And so that means that all we have is a step deficiency. But if you look at the randomized controlled trials where they just put step counters on people who are overweight, obese, I think they lost 0.3 kilograms in 28 weeks. It's just not a big, if you think about this homeostatic mechanism, the body wants to stay the same. You going from 5,000 to 10,000 steps just isn't it's not a big hit, right? You got to hit this problem from so many different angles to make a large effect size, to have an impact. So you gotta lower your calories. You gotta have enough NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Exercise is probably not going to be that helpful at helping you lose weight, but it is very, very helpful at maintaining muscle tissue, because if you don't lift weight and you just diet, you could lose 70% of that. If you're sleep deprived and you're stressed out of your mind, 70% of that could be muscle, 80% of that could be muscle, right? And then you're digging yourself a bigger hole. Like maybe you lose 10 pounds, you lose 20 pounds, but 10 of it's muscle, right? And then what are you going to do? Your body's probably going to gain it back, and it's going to gain it back as fat. And then we have what's called fat overshoot, which is your body not only regulates the amount of fat on your body, but it also regulates the amount of muscle. So then you'll gain more fat back until you get that muscle back. So to me, dieting without strength training it's unethical.
Wow, interesting. What an interesting perspective and insight to look at what this is really like. It's kind of really addressing the yo-yo, right? Of what people are doing when they're trying these different trends or these different strategies to lose weight. And like the first thing out of your mouth was like improved food quality. When so many words is like, and like, God, if I hear one more person say if it fits your macros and I can eat a Big Mac a day and still lose weight, I'm like, well, you might eat a Big Mac a day, but your butt's gonna hurt. Like you're not gonna feel good, right? Like, but your first thing was food quality, because that's gonna increase energy, because you're get more calories in, right, and higher quality.
For everybody's different, right? For someone who needs more calories, then I'm gonna I don't have a horse in any race, so like that's a big thing. Like nothing's good or bad. So for me, I want a skeleton of a diet that is real food, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if someone has to eat 4,000 calories and they're a weight gain client, yeah, you're not gonna be able to do that with sweet potatoes and broccoli. Like it's not gonna happen, right? But if you're a weight loss client, you might only get that skeleton, right? Yeah. If you only have 1,500, 2,000 calories to work with, or even less, right? So if you're a 5'1" female, I'm telling you, I have so much empathy. Life is going to be hard. You just don't have that many calories to work with. It's very, very easy for you to blow through any deficit that you do have. Like chips and margarita is going to do it. And so that's where I think, yes, we need to raise food quality, but I'm more after you need to move more and eat more, because the brain is very respective of volume of food, and it responds to that. That can be good and bad. Like if you're a weight gain client, you don't want your body to respond. You want to eat more, so you want to lower your food quality. But I think having that skeleton of good food is really important. And the other thing, if we're just talking to people that are, maybe, and I don't mean this negatively, but I wish my nutritional brain on no one. Like it's annoying. Like I think for real, like an apple has like 24.6 grams of carbohydrates, depending on how big. Like no one should think like that. No one should think how I think about food. It's so totally stupid. I want you to see a blueberry and think about a blueberry. Like I don't want you to immediately like turn it into grams and calories. Like it's stupid, right? And so for the majority of people, I just want to get them a formula that works. But one thing I do see a lot in our current like very real food movement thing is all of a sudden like oils and fats are good again. But we need to remember, like if you're a weight loss client, oils and fats are not that satiating, and they just add calories to things. Like you go to, I was at an event and like they were just going to grill all these vegetables. And then he's like, well, he just started dumping olive oil on all the vegetables. I'm like, wow. So like we just took something that was not energy dense at all, and we just increased the energy density tenfold. And now it's like, it's a little bit more delicious, but it's just floating in calories. Right. And I have no idea. And so that's very, very common for people to do. And so like watching your fat intake is probably a good idea. Like it's not, when I see people who aren't losing weight on like a paleo schematic, or it's generally because they're adding too much oil or they're over consuming nuts, right? Because those are very dense, not very satiating foods. What's satiating? Like something like a zucchini. It's basically just volume of food. And you can just add it to things and it just fills things up. It just puts, like, if you're going to make eggs, put zucchinis in it, because it's going to just make you have, triple the amount of eggs that you had before.
So how do you, like, what are you saying to the person who just like, I don't like vegetables, or like they don't have the skills, or they haven't been put in an environment to be successful? And obviously you've worked with these types of people, but like, like you and I live in this bubble where like all this makes a lot of sense. How are you helping this message go across to like your mother-in-law who doesn't understand what you understand? Or how do you help someone at the base level understand this concept?
First of all, they have to like want my help. Like I don't
Yep.
I don't ever like give unsolicited advice. Like, no, if I go to dinner, like I don't want, like if people know what I do, like I don't talk about nutrition. Like I don't talk about it. Like it's like, unless we're on a consult, like I'm not going to make you feel bad about it.
Right.
Try to have a good time. So nutritional IQ is a big deal, and so is cooking. If you don't know how to cook your food, you are all of a sudden dependent on the system to get food, and the system is going to make things taste good because that's what you pay for. And so I actually did my thesis, and my dissertation was on meal frequency. And so we collected thousands of recalls in freshman Hispanic students at the University of Texas at Austin. And one thing I noticed real quick was these kids were either eating at the CAF or they were eating like Easy Mac in their dorms. So nobody was making their own food. So we were creating an entire, 50, 60, 70,000 people that go to UT. I think it's about 50,000 kids that are have no idea how to cook. They have no idea, right? They're completely reliant. And so what happens? If you're that person, you go to college, you've been relying on this cafeteria system, you probably gain 10 to 15 pounds, because that's the best way to make people gain weight, is to give them unrestricted access to a high variety of foods in a social environment. And so now what happens when they want to get healthy? Well, it just turns into Chipotle. Like, that's all that happens is like, so I don't have the answer. Like if you don't know how to cook, maybe go to a cooking class, but it's honestly like not that hard to cook things and make them taste pretty good. So you could get a meat thermometer and cook chicken breast to temperature, because chicken breast cooked to 165 is a lot different than chicken breast cooked to 200. Like I'm telling, like, and so like just learning some little tips and tricks to saute things, and like having like one pan meals that are easy, and meal prepping. And one of the things that I really find disconcerting is if you're bad at cooking, you expect your terrible meal prep, frozen broccoli and chicken and some sweet potato, whatever it is, brown rice, you expect that to beat the whole other world that's out there? It's not going to happen, right? So we got to make that food at least taste good. You got to look forward to having, like, can you build like some low calorie megas or something? And there's companies that do that pretty well, like MyFitFoods, like prepackaged, pre-portioned meal companies. But then again, now you're in, is that sustainable for you from a because those things can work, but we want systems that can work forever, because I don't care how much weight you can lose in 3 weeks. I care how much weight you can lose forever, because you losing the same 10 to 20 pounds repeatedly is not helpful.
Now you talk about systems, and I brought that up in terms of like, I used to be someone, especially on productivity, I can't ask me to make a productivity schedule when I didn't run on one before, and asking me to build one is kind of impossible. And that's how I really looked at like this program, was like, man, asking some of these people to build a training program and a lifestyle fitness program when like they're dependent on the system, or they've never even had a good relationship with going to that box to go work out. They just know that society says they should go. That it's like, how do I help at least provide some context around what can help make them successful or give them some ideas. You're working with people on a little bit different level, but when you're looking at building systems from a holistic level, how are you looking at that with your clients? Like, or what do you look at from your lens of perspective and building better systems for people to change their lives? Because you're dealing with them after they found someone like me and they're like, holy shit, my adrenals are effed or my hormones are dumped or whatever that is. So you're having to start from the beginning.
I don't know. I see clients of, I don't know that I see, I don't know that I see, I don't see that many broken clients. I generally refer those people out. No. I mean, I see people that are struggling with energy or struggling with digestive issues for sure. But energy can, if you're struggling with energy issues, like most, if it's not something pathological, you're probably bored or you're overworked, because fatigue is generally task specific. So like maybe you're just like doing the same thing over and over. You're just bored, right? Or you're overworked and you don't want to do it anymore. So if you found like if you feel fatigued and you take a cold shower and then you don't feel fatigued anymore, that probably wasn't like real fatigue. It was just like your mind was just burnt out on whatever it was doing. And so like that's not to say like that if you don't get enough sleep, if you don't have enough nutrients, like if you're not meeting your body's basic needs, if you're not getting out in the sun, your circadian rhythms are all messed up. Like that's not saying that wouldn't result in you having lower energy levels. Also, like how much iron do you have if you're a cycling female? These are boxes. There's a lot of boxes that I want to check, right? When I'm looking at a human. But the big thing for me is I don't want to answer people's questions. I want them to answer their own questions, because I don't know what's right for you. I want you to self initiate what you want to do. And I also want you to self-identify your own barriers too. Like, so say a lot of people like, I want to lose 30 pounds in the next 6 weeks or whatever it is. I'm like, well, okay, that's your goal. Now, what do you have going on? What are the barriers to you potentially losing that amount of weight in the next 6 weeks? Oh, well, I have 4 weddings. Oh, okay. Like that's not going to work. Like just because you have a ton of social eating stress, or if you just want to not eat at those weddings, maybe it could work. Right. But also 30, I don't know how big you are, but 30 pounds in 6 weeks is probably, you're going to lose some muscle. It's probably too fast. Maybe not if you're very, very heavy. But I'm always looking, I don't want to change people's goals. I want them to trip on the truth. So I just want to look at like, what are the logistics of this? What does this look like? How can we help you? How can we help you do it? And then identify what are the big rocks for their particular problem, and then help them figure out how they're going to get that done, with the ideology in the back of my head that I want to make it easy. I want to make it enjoyable, because otherwise it's not going to stick. And I also want to make those things that are quote unquote bad, the things that they don't want to do. Like, so say like what happens when you fail at your diet? Oh, well, I just eat queso. Okay. So how far away can I put queso from you? And so and how can I make that, maybe, I don't know how you make queso dissatisfying. Maybe like every time you eat queso, you have to donate to an anti-charity or something. Something like that. Like if you don't like the NRA, like every time you eat queso, you have to donate $50 to the NRA. You probably won't eat queso. But then you have to have someone hold you accountable to that dissatisfaction. So those are the things I'm thinking about when I'm working with a client. Yes, there are a lot of metabolic things that I want to check off my list. I want to make sure that someone's not anemic. If they do have a pathology, I want to make sure that they get to the right person. But those are, if we're just talking about diet and exercise, I want to make sure that I'm building a program that they're building with me. I'm just essentially a sounding board, and I'm trying to show them like, hey, this is logistically possible. This is how we're going to do it. These are the barriers to you doing it. How can we lower those barriers? How can we get around them? And is it possible? So like you think about the majority of people wanting to lose weight. It's moms, right? It's moms that have to prepare food for their kids. Like think about how hard that is. You're a mother who's maybe 20 pounds heavier than she wants to be. Now you got to make food for other people, and you don't get to eat that food. Damn, dude, that is hard. Or you just go out to eat. And so there's a lot of populations that are just logistically more difficult. And then you just think about, Bob, who wants to lose 30 pounds, and he just stopped drinking Coke and he started drinking water and he lost 15 pounds. Like, that's a much easier nutritional problem. Like, he started walking and he drank water. And Cindy, who's been trying to lose 20 pounds for the last 5 years, like, she hates that because she's a different problem.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned this, everybody's individuals, people have their own problems. You don't want to be the person that tells people what to go do. You want to be that sounding board. Are you seeing in your research or in the application with your clients, are you seeing a trend in health in like the decision making as a culture? Like, are you seeing some things
of us, of humans?
Yes.
Like, as a researcher, I have a completely convenient sample. Like, I'm seeing a higher SES population. Like, I don't know that my own observations are of much importance, just because I'm biased. As far as the US, I don't know, diabetes is skyrocketing. I don't think we're doing better. 1 in 2 minorities who's born after 2000 is going to have diabetes. It's a bad, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm actually not a pessimist. Do I think we can fix this problem at the population level? No, I don't. I think that this evolutionarily, like, if you think about the agricultural evolution, if you think about evolution of humans as a football field, agriculture is the last half yard. The industrial food revolution, which we're living in now, and then you combine that with the internet revolution and iPhone revolution, it's the last 0.3 inches. So, like, we're in an entirely new world that our brain and our whole system is not meant to deal with. We have never lived in this level of abundance with this little amount to do. Like, for real, like, our body doesn't need to move anymore. Most of us have desk jobs, right? We don't need to do anything to get food. We don't even need to do anything to get paper or like numbers on screens. Like, we don't need to do our body. Most of us are just using mental effort, if that. And so I don't, like, at the population level, very, very, like, if you talk to the people who are deep into the public health sphere, and I've had the opportunity to listen to some of these folks, I think of overweight or obesity as kind of like a bubble. And so anything we poke, there's going to be a reaction, right? You think about what happened in the 80s and the 90s. Well, we just went low fat. And what happened? Well, Snackwell's cookies came. And bam, we just had Snackwell's cookies. Oh, and then now it's carbs. Then it was carbs, right? And then what happened? Oh, we get keto cookies. Right? And so, like, the system is just going to find a way to create cookies, like, because that is what our brains, that is what all of our evolution is pointing us to do, is to make and create cookies. And you don't even have to make and create them. You just buy them with paper or with numbers on a screen, which is completely crazy. And so at the population level, do I think that we're going to be successful? Probably not. Maybe, and this is a completely off the spectrum of the topic, but like, maybe biomedical will bail us out and they'll figure something else. They'll figure something out. It'll be like the Matrix. I don't know. Like, it's really hard for people to fathom. Like, 10 years ago, my job didn't exist. So right. 10 years from now, my job might not exist. Pretty good chance of it. Right. And so we've never lived in that type of world, right? If you were a blacksmith, you're probably gonna be a blacksmith your whole life. Now, not the case. You might have to change jobs 6 or 7 times. You might have to reinvent yourself multiple times. And so it's stressful. But from a health perspective side, what can we do? I think a lot of people are lacking a movement practice. And so finding something that you like, it could be Zumba, it could be swinging maces, it could be Olympic weightlifting. I don't care what it is. Just find something that you like, and that thing that you like might change, right? And that's okay. And so find some kind of movement that you enjoy. And if you don't enjoy anything, then we need to be as efficient as possible in the gym, which is probably 20 to 30 minutes on machines, which ironically is something that, like, I hated like 5 to 10 years ago. And now I'm just like, legitimately, it's probably the best bet to do, right? It's probably the most functional fitness thing we can do for someone who doesn't like to train and who isn't on board, because it's just putting on muscle. And if they're not going to give you buy-in to be able to front squat to failure, and that's going to take a really long time, 6 to 6 months at least, for if you have somebody on a velocity based testing, you have to express effort, and most people do not have the ability when they're in space yet to. That takes a long time to be able to express that effort safely inside with a lot of the tools that you have around you. Not that those tools are bad. It's just like for the majority of the population, if I'm just after muscle, or if I'm just after maintenance of muscle and maintenance of bone from a completely objective viewpoint, there's anything can work, right? So I'm just, if they don't like training, I'm going to use the easiest option.
Interesting. I love it. No, but I think that's so great because so many people just don't have a practice at all. You get the people like they are too tired, and so they don't want to go move, and so then they don't go move, and then they become less happy with their body, and then they use food as whatever that coping mechanism is. Like it's a long cycle. But I love that you just started off just so simple, right? And yes, it sounds so simple, but like installing a movement practice and identifying that like you may not do it because you don't like it. Find something that you do like.
Just
right?
try a bunch of stuff. Just try it. Just go try stuff. Like just go try a bunch of stuff.
Is to just try stuff and to like, you know, because like the program, like I have example programs and like, you know, you have a 2, 3, 4 day program if you do want it, but like, you know, like I have someone demoing the program right now that is only doing group classes because that's what she does. And I'm like, I'm totally cool with that because she's doing it 3 days a week. And it's like, if that's what keeps you doing it, and you know, some days because she lives in New York, like some of the days there's activity goals and walking goals. So like she does get more of those, but like it's just functions of her program in terms of her looking at her day or her week of like, okay, I can get more out of this here, or I felt better doing this. But like the actual action of it, I don't really care because it was a catalyst to do more of something else.
Yeah, usually a lot of these habits are waterfall out. So like if you can get like some kind of anchoring habit, usually that's sleep, movement, or nutrition, like a keystone habit or something like what's most important to you, then it'll start to ripple out, and then you'll have more things you'll start to care about this. It'll become part of your identity, and identity-based habits stick. And that's not to say that your identity, that it's going to happen right away. Like you have to build that, right? Wear the mask until it becomes your face. And so now she goes to group classes. Maybe she's extrinsically motivated, right? So she maybe like, I'll ask people like, if you were an athlete in high school, like, so there's people that were track athletes, right? And they never miss a track practice, but then they stop being an athlete and they never work out anymore. Oh, well, you probably are going to function really well in a group class environment because it's going to have that extrinsic environment. And so those are all things like just you are your own individual person. And so as much as we are snowflakes, we all melt the same. And so it's like we need some kind of movement. We need food quality to be elevated in some way. And we need some type of resistance training. Those are the biggest levers we can pull.
Do people need to go right away and go get a blood panel done? Like, you know, where should people be starting? Because now, like, you got things like Inside Tracker, 23andMe, all these, you know, different diagnostic tools out there, you know, and you know, a lot of people, they do want to jump into these technologically driven resources because that seems like it's the next step to like help their individual needs. Is that where you want someone to start, or does it even really matter? Is that just an anchor that gets them to go?
So 23andMe, hell no. Like there's no way, like I can't tell you can't learn anything from your genes. Like we're not going to go down that road. Tommy Wood goes down that road. It's fun, it's nerdy, but anyone trying to sell you something from a genetic analysis, run. Because that's you cannot assume phenotype. I'm going to use big words here. Phenotype is the expression of your genome. You cannot assume phenotype from your genetic information. That's a big jump. There's a lot of steps that go from genome to phenotype. And so I think like getting a basic blood panel and seeing a physician, not a bad idea. You're probably not going to get much usable evidence out of there, but you also don't want to have a heart attack. Like I'm really surprised at the amount of gyms that don't make people go do some type of testing. Right. And so, yeah, you probably want to check in on that aspect. Now, if you're not that old, I think you're going to be all right, but you also don't want to get rhabdo, right? Like you want to take it slowly. And that's really, really important for females. I think it's really, really, really important that they make sure, if you're a cycling female, really important that you make sure you're not anemic. Because if you lose, iron is very, very important for carrying around oxygen. And if you don't have iron, you are essentially strangling yourself from the inside and you lose blood every month, right? So if you're losing a lot of blood and you're not eating a lot of iron, which is primarily found in meat, red meat has more than chicken, but chicken still have, poultry and other meat products still have iron in them, heme iron. You're probably not, even if you lose a lot of iron, you might never be repleting that. So I'm really in females who are lacking energy, that's really the first thing that we have to check is, do you have enough iron on board? I would get a ferritin value in that case. I would want that. You could also get a complete blood count. So those are just very common tests that someone can run. I don't like all these blood panels that cost a ton of money. They can work, right? Because if we think about, if you look, what is the placebo? Like, what increases the placebo? Well, it's money invested, right? So if you put money into something, that thing has more leverage. You're ultimately going to have more buy-in because of that. So is it always a bad idea? I will tell you, like, I would never run an adrenal stress index. Like, those are bullshit. At least how they're used, like a 1 point in time adrenal stress index, not helpful. Like, they had people do 28 days in a row of adrenal stress index all over the bat. Like the max and mins for every person was like 1 to 30 at every time point. So like, depending on the day, it was completely different. So it's just one point in time values of your adrenals, not helpful. And someone telling you that you have adrenal fatigue, also not helpful. Adrenal hormone cortisol does not correlate with fatigue. And so that is a big thing. And also, like, if you say your adrenal output is low, your body probably wants it that way for a reason. The adrenal glands have receptors for different cytokines, which are immune producers, like from the immune system. So if your body's infected, it wants to, with some kind of infection, it wants to slow you down. And so that's one of the reasons that's one of the ways that it can slow you down. Now, most of the people do not probably have some type of actual adrenal insufficiency. You can make your adrenals bigger by training, right? You can get adrenal hyperplasia, you get renal hyperplasia by eating more hypertrophy by eating more protein, right? So a lot of these, the internet is always going to try to sell you simple stories. All of this stuff, this physiology, it's very, very complex. And if you're not if you don't care about this stuff to the level that I care about it, I don't know that you don't have to know that complexity, but just know that you're easily fooled, and know that people are out there on the internet constantly trying to sell you simple stories that are just sciencey enough. Because, man, we don't, as scientists, I've been doing this, I don't know, about a really long time. I don't know if you classify as that, but I've been doing this for 13 years. And I've seen a lot of stuff come and go. And I was a personal trainer I started training people when I was 19 years old, and I just kept asking why, and no one gave me good enough answers. And so eventually I just had to try to find my own answers. And science it's not perfect, but it's the best way that we have. But what nauseates me the most about our current landscape of health is that people don't understand what is quality evidence and what is not. And so we get documentaries that are complete nonsense, like from a scientific standpoint. And then those documentaries, because they're done well, because they tell a simple story that is just sciencey enough, people jump on the bandwagon. They create identities based around whatever diet that is. And that to me there's probably no way around it. But if you're listening to this and you are involved in this program, know that is never going away. And people are constantly going to try to sell you things based probably on their own opinion or their own observation, which I value exactly zero. Because all of us are biased, right? If you think about, like, we all have a tiny little flashlight in the world of what we see and what we think works, right? And I'm not saying that, yes, if your opinion is obviously more valid than a trainer that just started at the age of 18, 100%. But is your opinion more valid than a meta-analysis of this particular? No, like, it's not, and neither is mine, right? And so that's where I think most of the people on the internet are trying to, this worked for me, or look at this 6-week transformation, right? And this worked for this person. I don't care. It's all anecdotal evidence. And then the next thing they'll do is they'll try to sell you on observational research, which is population-based research. Like, this country does this and they are healthy, blue zones. another simple story. Like, yeah, you might be able to take something away from that, but it's all correlational. And that's just like the first line of research. And so I'm not asking you to go get a PhD. I'm not asking you to understand research methods and designs. Just know the fallibility of your own mental models. You will be easily tricked. All of us will, because that's what we've done from the beginning of time is we've reduced uncertainty with simple stories. And so that's people on social media are just trying to give you that. It's just this diet. That's all you need to do. You just need to take this fucking essential oil.
Well, it's funny that you brought up the simplicity thing and like the storytelling, because we're narrative creatures. And then the original part of the conversation was around, that there's a simple idea that you should just go do this, right? Or that's the story that a lot of us are getting told. Yet we're in this environment where that's not the environment we're set up to be successful, right? Like, you're right. I love that. That's the way that you talked about this, and obviously knowing the answers you're probably going to give, that, hey, like, you're trying to live this life of scarcity and not eating when we're living in the world of abundance. Like, you're probably not going to set yourself up for success. Like, that's just
at least long term. Like, you might be able to, like, I always think of it like, okay, let's think of this in terms of a strength coach. Let's think of this in blocks. I think this is what we did when we were together. I was like, hey, when you have a 4-week block where you're not traveling, never. I don't know. I don't know if this is ever going to work. Right. And and we were trying to self-identify, like, what can you do on the road? How can you have some level of accountability on the road? Right. And it's just really hard because those chefs who are making your food, they don't care. Like, they don't care how much oil they put on those Brussels sprouts. They don't give a shit. Right. And so that is really the big thing, is just kind of what I do is meeting people where they are. And it sounds like what your program is kind of, it sounds like a sampler. And then people can start to kind of gravitate towards maybe 3 or 4 things that they like. And then once they kind of get on the bandwagon with that, which I love. And so if you're doing the program, be easy on yourself, but also be hard on yourself. Because it's not impossible. It's 100% not impossible at the individual level. It's just going to take work, and you're going to have ups and downs. And don't try to schedule impossible things. Like, don't try to eat 1,200 calories when you have to go out to eat 4 times this week. Like, that's terrible. Maybe you sell real estate, or maybe whatever your job is. Like, maybe you have to entertain people. Like, go set up systems. Like, have 3 restaurants where you already know what you're going to order and go there. And then you don't have to think. Like, you're trying to not think as much as possible. Like, people don't like bodybuilders, but bodybuilders are robots. They think as little as possible. They eat the same food every day. I'm not saying that that's how your life needs to be, but you probably right now, you have too many options, and you need to reduce the amount of options that you have so that you have so you can actually make a choice and do that thing.
And do you have, like, maybe in terms of, like, I know you're not a general guy, but, like, where should people even start? Like, let's say you're someone that's maybe even considering trying to get on this wagon, like, of making better decisions or maybe being healthier. Is there any, like, starting point for the person that just has no idea, like, holy shit, I loved what I heard that made sense to me, but I don't even know where to go?
I mean, imagine you're trying to build a house, like, and you have no idea. You're like, are you going to just, like, wing it? Are you like, just go buy some tools? Are you just going to go buy some tools at Home Depot and try to figure it out? Like, you might be able to figure it out, but how long do you think it's going to take you? Really long time. You should probably hire somebody, right? I'm going to hire somebody that's done this thing before, right? And there's a lot of people out there. So how you filter it, I'm looking for people who say don't know. I'm looking for people who are, someone that gives you all the answers. I don't know about that. Like, yeah, that could work. But I would find somebody who's knowledgeable, and you got somebody right in front of you right here. And that's probably the most scalable, right? Is because there seems to be this bifurcation in the nutrition world, right? Where people don't want in-person stuff as much anymore. And they want, because I mean, you got to meet this person. You got to go somewhere. You got to like them. As a personal trainer, the best thing that you can do for your business is be funny and be likable. Because that you want your sessions to be enjoyable. There's so many terrible trainers. Like, we know them. They're terrible trainers, but they're booked out because they're funny and people like to hang out with them, right? And so the in-person market is probably always going to be there, But there's also this other market that's coming, which is kind of more sound advice from someone like yourself, or there's lots of different programs on the internet, people who have been doing this a while, and that can be a lead in to maybe finding someone else or finding something that you like.
Awesome, man. Guys, that's the whole point of this. Ben just dropped amazing amount of really good insight around the way to look and approach this, and some really great nuggets just around decision making, and maybe some of the reasons that way we think, or some of the reasons that we do things are a part of our DNA. It's part of our natural being. It's who we are. And while it doesn't mean that we're not accountable to our decisions, it does highlight that there are external stresses that are out of our control that we're fighting against. And I'm so happy that he was able to bring up and highlight some of those, but also acknowledging that, hey, it's still on us to work hard. It sucks that we're in an environment that's not setting us up for success, but it's about finding the right tools to be successful. And I would encourage all of you to reach out to him.
I would say, I would finish on this. Humans are always nostalgic of the past, right? So we're always like, man, I don't want to be in this environment. Like, you want to be right now. You want to be in this environment. Like, you don't want to, I guarantee you, like, you couldn't even function 20 years ago, right? You want to be here. Like, so I always say, like, yeah, you want to go back in time? You want 40 to 50% of babies to die? And people are like, no way. Yeah, that's what life was like. You don't want that. You want to be right now. You want to be in this world of abundance, 100%. You want to live in this world. But it's going to be tougher if you want to not have the pathologies, the problems of progress. If you don't want to suffer from those problems of progress, you're going to have to do some work. But you want to be right here, right now. So don't get overly nostalgic about the past, because everybody does that.
I love it. Where can people learn more about the research you're doing, or keep up with you, or find out like ways to work with you? What's the best way to get in contact?
Instagram is probably the best way, at Dr. Ben House. You can find me there. We do a lot of research. We're kind of a pro bono. I don't know. We're not a nonprofit, but might as well be. So like pretty much I don't buy anything. I could live
except a really cool ass gym equipment for a really sweet ass spot.
So yeah, like the only thing I spend money on is gym equipment and tank tops. Like, so like, and technology. Like, so I literally spend no money on anything else. So Bro Research is kind of the culmination of that. We're trying to move the field forward and answer some of these tougher questions, and just bring more science to the people. Like, if you liked what I was talking about, research methods and designs, and being able to assess the quality of evidence, we talk about that a lot. And so that's where you can find me. And I'm just honored that I have the ability to do what I do. And I wake up every morning, and I think we're the same, just as passionate about this whole field.
And that's the best part. And it's so amazing to have resources like Dr. Ben to be able to come in and share this, and be able to, highlight what's going on at that level. Because as much as I'd like to be the resource that's that person for y'all, I'd rather showcase that there are other people who are way smarter than me in this industry, and that are out there doing the things that really move this industry forward in research and application. So thank you so much for joining me, man. It was such a pleasure to catch up. Looking forward to it. And we should talk about getting the True Coach team to come down and do a retreat down there in Costa Rica with you.
Sounds great, man. Yeah, let's just let me know how I can help.
Sounds good, man. Thank you. Bye, guys.